Welcome to the Space and Satellite track at Amateur Space Radio Auditorium. We're happy you're here. Our speakers today will be covering a lot of ground, and there will be plenty of time for questions and answers. Please visit the Amateur Space Radio exhibit in the Expo Hall for additional content, handouts, and shopping. We hope you enjoyed the uplifting dance music set last night by John Breyer. John is an active amateur radio satellite operator and educator who also regularly spins EDM records on Twitch. If you'd like to hear the set from John Breyer, then please visit the booth for the link to the recording. Tonight, we're hosting a unique online social event experience. It's a virtual scavenger hunt sponsored by Amateur Space Radio. And now, here's our speaker lineup for today. Our first presentation is Introduction to Amateur Radio Satellites by Douglas Quagliana, KA2UPW-5. This presentation is an introduction to many of the things you can do with amateur radio satellites, including telemetry, tracking, orbital mechanics, digital signal processing, and several really simple satellite antennas you can build. Douglas Quagliana's writings have appeared in CQ VHF, QRPP, QRP Quarterly, the AMSAT Journal, and AMSAT UK Oscar News. His interests include digital signal processing, telemetry, QRP, and mobile HF. He has a BS and an MS in computer science and one patent. Our next presentation is Working the Easy FM Amateur Satellites with Clint Bradford, K6LCS. From getting licensed to finding local clubs, to working the easy FM amateur satellites with minimal investment. We'll cover all the basics for you with plenty of ways to submit any questions you may have afterwards. Let's get you working the birds ASAP. Clint Bradford has been a ham since 1994 and also involved in the commercial side of the communications industry. His How to Work the Amateur Satellites with Your HT presentation has informed and delighted more than 100 audiences the past few years. Clubs, conventions, and hamfests, not only in Southern California, but also to clubs across North America and Canada. He's an ARRL educator, AMSAT ambassador, and member of several AMSAT chapters across the planet. The next presentation is Digital Multiplexing Transponder from Open Research Institute. The presenters are Bob McGuire, N4HY, Thomas Perry, and Wally Ritchie, WU1Y. Open source, cutting edge, easy to use, affordable, adaptable, and fun. Learn all about exciting and innovative microwave broadband multi-user systems for amateur space and terrestrial use. This is an open source modern design from Open Research Institute, an AMSAT member society and registered research institute in the United States. Bob McGuire is an adjunct professor at Virginia Tech, former chief scientist at the Hume Center, founder of Hawkeye 360 and Federated Wireless, and that's just what he's done lately. Bob has written code or designed circuits for AMSAT for decades. A gifted engineer with expansive vision, Bob will summarize the community's efforts to get and achieve GEO and introduce one of the current efforts to create amateur circuits well worth putting into space. Thomas Perry is a space industry professional from the Netherlands. He serves as Open Research Institute's system engineer for Phase 4 space projects. His current work is in analog and digital custom ASIC design, producing mixed signal ICs for sensing and power applications. He works with the European Space Agency and previously worked at Clyde Space. Thomas will be presenting the technical overview of the ORI Digital Microwave Transponder project. The next presentation is Debris Mitigation in Earth Orbit by Anshul Makar. How can the amateur radio satellite service thrive in the new space race? In this presentation, learn what has been presented to regulators about the bright future of our hobby. Topics include current issues for amateur radio satellite community, problems related to shell, debris, etc., how the amateur radio satellite service can survive, details of debris mitigation, mathematic results from the presenter's paper, and 2 videos, Orbit from GTO to GEO and Orbit from GEO to Graveyard. Anshul Makar is a theorist with a firm belief in hands-on engineering and special interest in research and mathematics. He has contributed to many open source projects and has worked with international teams across the globe. He serves as a senior engineer at Open Research Institute. Fearless when it comes to domain boundaries, Anshul just wants to keep learning and contributing wherever he can. Next up, how to enjoy amateur radio contacts with the International Space Station, presented by Frank Bauer, KA3HDO, and Rosalie White. You can enjoy ham radio contacts through the ERIS radios on the International Space Station. We'll explain how you can have fun trying ERIS packet, slow scan TV, and repeater mode. Intermediate level and even beginners learn how to try off-the-planet hamming. Frank H. Bauer's aerospace career spans over 40 years within NASA and private industry. Mr. Bauer's primary research interests include spaceborne applications of the Global Positioning System, GPS, and space vehicle formation flying. He was the principal investigator of 4 spaceflight GPS and formation flying experiments, including the AMSAT Oscar 40 GPS experiment, investigating the use of GPS above the constellation. His hobbies include astronomy, amateur radio, and flying. He's the founder of ERIS USA, which enables amateur radio on the International Space Station. Rosalie White is an ERIS US delegate to the International Space Station, supported by NASA. Her specialties are STEM, aerospace, NASA, amateur radio, and aviation. Next, we have Getting on the Air with Amateur Radio Satellites by Tom Schussler, N5HYP. Tom will provide an introduction to what you need to know to become active on FM satellites and beyond. Tom was licensed in 1985. Although he was aware of amateur radio space communications, he thought it was just too far beyond the means of the average ham Joe. In 2009, he caught the bug from the late Keith Pugh, W5IU, the realization that he already had a radio that would work with the then existing FM satellites was all he needed. He now not only actively enjoys communicating through the current fleet of amateur radio satellites, but loves to communicate his passion and experience to those who have never yet experienced the thrill. Professionally, Tom has worked in the broadcast television and video fields as a production and systems engineer. Our next presentation is Remote Labs for P4XT Engineering Development by Paul Williamson, KB5MU. Open Research Institute has equipped 2 labs for remote development of FPGA-based wideband digital systems, such as ORI's P4XT Multiplexing Transponder program. Paul will report on equipment selection, remote access techniques, and lessons learned in the first months of operation. Remote developers are invited. Amateur radio sparked Paul's interest in electronics and led to a career in digital design and software, specializing in communications and embedded systems, such as Qualcomm's CDMA cellular telephones. He believes in open source collaboration. Our next presentation is Solving the ITAR and EAR Problem for the Amateur Radio Satellite Service by Michelle Thompson, W5NYV. The regulatory framework for communications satellites has carve-outs for open source and public domain work. Recent successful regulatory efforts have resulted in landmark improvements for the amateur radio satellite service work. Come hear the good news. This talk will have breaking news about regulatory results for the amateur radio satellite service. Michelle Thompson has an MSEE in Information Theory, is co-founder and current CEO of Open Research Institute, is a senior member of IEEE, life member of ARRL, AMSAT, and won the 2018 Don Hilliard Award for service to the amateur satellite community. The final session is a moderated panel discussion and Q&A. Following the panel discussion is our Around the World Scavenger Hunt social event. Join your fellow participants in a fun and exciting around-the-world online scavenger hunt from Watson's Adventures. Unwind from a day of presentations and exhibits, make new friends, and see amazing and beautiful places, all from the comfort of home. Thank you, and please welcome our first speaker.